According to the law of one, particularly the raw material, civilizations like the Egyptians and others did not simply disperse in the way we typically understand through conventional history. Instead, their rise and fall, as well as the sudden disappearance of advanced techniques and knowledge, are viewed through a metaphysical lens that emphasizes spiritual evolution, cosmic cycles, and the role of free will. From the perspective of the law of one, here's how the sudden dispersal of civilizations and loss of advanced knowledge can be interpreted. 1. Harvest and spiritual evolution. According to Ra, Earth and its inhabitants are part of a cosmic process called the harvest, which refers to the transition of souls from one density or level of consciousness to another. Civilizations often go through cycles of learning, spiritual growth, and opportunity for harvest. When a significant percentage of individuals in a civilization are ready for spiritual ascension, moving from third density, which is tied to self awareness, to fourth density, which is about love and understanding, the civilization may experience shifts or even disappear as the collective focus moves toward a different state of being. In the case of ancient Egypt, Ra claims they initially attempted to help the Egyptians with spiritual and technological knowledge to aid in this harvest. However, due to distortions and misinterpretations of these teachings, many of the lessons were misused and the spiritual focus was lost. 2. Loss of techniques. Due to free will and karma. Advanced techniques for creating artifacts, pyramids, or spiritual tools were often provided by beings like Ra or gained through contact with higher density entities. These were intended to help civilizations align with cosmic principles and prepare for the harvest. However, once these techniques were used for purposes of power, control, or ego rather than for the intended spiritual progression, there was a karmic consequence. Over time, due to the principle of free will, such knowledge was either withdrawn or forgotten. This loss wasn't a punishment, but a natural result of misalignment with the intended spiritual goals. Essentially, when humanity's collective vibration falls away from the higher purpose, the advanced knowledge becomes inaccessible because the consciousness required to maintain and apply it is no longer present. 3. Waning of contact with higher density beings. Civilizations like the Egyptians were often in contact with higher density entities such as Ra or other extraterrestrial intelligences. These entities provided guidance on spiritual practices, technologies, and even construction techniques, like those used to build the pyramids, which were aligned with sacred geometry and intended for the initiation into higher consciousness. However, as time passed and humanity's focus shifted toward materialism, power, and control, this direct contact diminished. The original teachings were corrupted, and the connection to these higher beings faded, resulting in a gradual loss of the knowledge and techniques once held. In this view, the sudden disappearance of such knowledge coincided with the loss of this contact and the shift away from spiritual priorities. 4. End of a cycle and new beginnings. The raw material discusses how planetary cycles come to an end, much like the end of a school year, where the current lesson is completed. At the end of a major cycle, approximately 75,000 years in Earth's case, a harvest occurs where souls are evaluated for their readiness to transition to the next density. Civilizations that are part of this larger cycle may suddenly dissipate or experience collapse as part of this cosmic ending, often linked to the planetary and spiritual reset. The loss of technical skills or cultural heritage, like that of ancient Egypt, may therefore represent not a physical end, but a transition into a new spiritual phase, where such artifacts or techniques are no longer necessary or relevant for the evolving collective consciousness. 5. Lessons in polarity and choice. The law of one emphasizes the importance of polarity: service to others, positive, or service to self, negative. Civilizations are provided with tools and knowledge to make their choice on this polarity spectrum. The sudden disappearance of certain skills and practices could also be understood as a result of collective choices towards service to self. When civilizations chose power over spiritual progression, a negative polarity, it led to their downfall or dispersal, as the positive spiritual teachings could no longer take root in a collective focused on control and domination. Once this negative shift occurred, The energy alignment required to maintain advanced spiritual or technical practices was disrupted, and the practices eventually faded away. 6. Higher purpose beyond the physical. From Ra's perspective, the physical artifacts and techniques themselves are secondary to the ultimate purpose of soul evolution. The advanced techniques used in ancient Egypt, such as pyramid construction, were originally intended as spiritual tools for healing, initiation, and aiding in the harvest process. Once the focus of these techniques shifted away from their spiritual roots, their purpose was no longer aligned with the higher densities goals. Thus, they became obsolete or were deliberately forgotten as humanity's focus became more materialistic and less spiritually attuned. In summary, from the raw materials perspective, the sudden dispersal of civilizations and loss of their techniques is tied to the spiritual evolution of the planet, the principle of free will, and the misapplication of higher density knowledge. When a civilization deviates from its spiritual path, knowledge that was once freely given is naturally withdrawn or forgotten, preparing the way for new cycles of growth or ascension.